We have to trust what we can't see in so many things, particularly in aviation.
This is a final call for British Airways flight number BA147.
It is our wish to move from here to there. We make our reservation and we go to the airport and we see this aquarium of these machines coming down outside the double glass and landing and nosing into this tank where we are. And we see crew people down there servicing and walking on the wings. And you can walk down the spar of a 747 and it is like a sidewalk. It is like solid concrete. And if we believe what we see, we turn around and we walk out of the airport right then, knowing that it is impossible to lift 300, 600,000 pounds into the air. If we say, I believe in magic, and if we look very carefully, we'll look at the shape of that wing, and that magical shape, even though it's cast in solid steel, has enormous power. I've been told that the amount of lift on the wing of a 747 is the equivalent of a baby sucking on a straw. That tiny straw circle has that little pressure differential. There are just so many acres of it that it will lift that steel into the sky. If we choose to fly, nothing will stop us from flight. I remember years ago, I got a letter from Lynn Rippelmeyer, and she was in South Florida, and she was absolutely, totally, completely, concentratedly determined to fly, and nothing was going to stop her. And from her letter was this wave of intense desire, and I knew reading the words. I knew what she didn't know. I knew that she would make it, and that she would be an absolutely astonishing pilot. She is, today, I believe, a captain on a 747.
I was reading a lot of books by Richard Bach that served as an inspiration in several ways. I wrote to him and told him that I really did want to learn to fly, and he helped out by sending me a check for $100 to start my airplane fund, into which went all my Christmas money and birthday money and anything I could put together. So after about 4 or 5 years, I guess, of flying 6 months out of the year and working as a flight attendant, the rest of the year I had my licenses and was an instructor myself. I think the 747 is the most beautiful airplane I've ever seen, definitely that I've ever flown. Its size is amazing, but what is truly amazing to me is that somebody sat down and even drew a picture, came up with the thought that something that huge could get into the air. After 2 years of flying it, each time I walk up to it, it's still awesome to think that, first of all, I'm going to get in there and be at the controls of it, and then that the thing's actually going to fly. She's my favorite. I like her. I think any 747 captain gets a real charge out of being in command of that kind of airplane. With all that power and feeling the engines rev up, get ready to go, releasing the brakes, feeling that much push behind you, and then the acceleration is a wonderful feeling, especially in that airplane, because it's so smooth, it's so graceful. Maybe she is the ultimate airplane. Most of the airlines have that as the airplane that the more senior people fly, which means she's the favorite. Captaining a 747 with 400 or 500 people behind you is no different than captaining a little Piper Cub all by yourself. As far as the responsibility goes, you're concerned about getting yourself and that piece of machinery safely and comfortably back down to earth. Maybe years ago, with the airplanes as heavy as they were, cable controlled, there was a need for a physically strong person, man, to fly that airplane. But that's 40, 50 years ago. Since the use of hydraulics, and especially 2 and 3 people in the cockpit, that macho-ness is no longer needed. And along with it, maybe that macho attitude of, I'm going to do this by myself. What we have often termed as the right stuff is not what you want in a commercial airplane with a team of people at the controls. Flying can be an incredibly emotionally beautiful experience as well. There are things like taking off in the morning with an overcast sky when everything down below is kind of gray and foggy. You can take off and break out maybe just 2,000 to 3,000 feet above the ground, and it's blue and sunshine up above. It's a completely different world. And if you level out at that altitude, it's almost like a high-speed boat going over the waves of the water, but without the pounding. It's just very soft. The clouds give way. Imagine being in your office or in your home and having 3 walls of a room that you can see out, and through those windows you get to see the coastlines, the mountains, the farmland, sunrises and sunsets, cloud formations, and that window is 7 miles above the ground. And that's my workplace, that's my office. You get addicted in a certain way. You miss it, you need it when you haven't flown for a while.
Okay, Continental 37, we're out of 330 now for 240.
124, go ahead.
I had the opportunity to take both of my grandfathers up in an airplane and realized that nobody in their generation had ever seen what you can see from an airplane, from getting off the ground. And it was a wonderful gift to be able to give them, the gift of flight. I feel incredibly lucky that I've found something that I love doing this much, that I almost need to give something back. Richard Bach has a line in one of his books that those of us who fly have our debts to pay.